All right, so now Immanuel Kant, to establish his categorical imperative, he had 4 different questions, scenarios, that he used to determine what was wrong and right, just as examples. He really likes to use examples instead of 3 and 4. So what is your opinion on suicide, contemplating suicide, and whether it's wrong or right?
I think generally wrong, in principle wrong, but on the other hand I can see very extreme situations, circumstances where somebody would, I think, feel justified and probably be justified, but generally wrong. And if you have to draw the line, it's better to draw it on the safe side, by which I mean I would rather see something made illegal, and so that the right questions are asked if that does happen, rather than making something legal and then giving rise to the possibility that there are unjustified or unnecessary.
So at least while suicide is illegal, they look into it, make sure that it wasn't some sort of homicide or anything like that. Oh, that makes sense. Very logical. Okay. And then, how about making a false promise to secure a loan?
I think it's wrong.
Wrong. Any reason in particular? Just.
It's wrong to the lender, and it's wrong to yourself as well, because they are trying to protect you as well as themselves. So I can't see.
It breaks down your own word, your own honesty.
Yeah, maybe I just haven't imagined a good reason for doing so.
What about not donating to charity when you have the means to?
I think that's an individual question. I don't necessarily see that as a moral question. I mean, I think it's an individual question. I think that some societies organise themselves in a way that people don't have to make that choice as individuals. I'm thinking about countries maybe like China, a lot of European countries that provide a very large safety net. And I can't justify this, and I have no figures, but I suspect that charitable giving is lower in those countries because people feel that the countries as a society have decided to provide that charitable safety net or benefit in an organised way.
Right.
And there are still charities that cover things that the if you like the government or the society doesn't cover. But for that reason, I think it's more of an individual question. When somebody is going to give to charity, there's a lot of research that they have to do to find out is this really a charity? How much of the money is actually being used, for the charitable target, if you like, or objective, right, versus the maintenance of the infrastructure, right, to support that charity. And is it like a self-fulfilling organisation or self-fulfilling charity?
And yes, you're right. In China, it is statistically proven that they donate less to special causes than it is in the United States.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about any European countries. All right, and this one is actually a little bit more personal, like you said, but having a special talent but not using it when it could benefit society. 2 examples that I've pulled to attention are Michael Jordan, had he not played basketball, he wouldn't have entertained millions of people. Essentially superfluous in terms of, that's not really something that's going to affect the grand scheme, but he did entertain millions of people for all of those nights that he did play. And then maybe a doctor who he could cure these brain diseases or some kind of special disease, but he stopped working as a doctor to fulfill other interests in his life. Is that wrong or right to you?
It's hard to say that it's wrong. It's certainly, of the first example you gave, I think is, as an entertainment thing, I think is less important.
Mhm.
I think if somebody is in a situation where they're in sight of something that is of real benefit to humanity, and they realise that, and if they at least don't take the time to pass on that knowledge, let's say they for some reason can't or don't want to pursue it themselves, at least take the time to pass on that knowledge so that somebody else can benefit from the perspective that you've been able to reach.
Right.
And I think that there is, I feel stronger about that as being more of an imperative, a moral imperative.
Right. So, I guess to take it to the more important scenario of the doctor, we could say that if he wanted to stop, he should mentor someone and make sure that they're ready to take his position and his knowledge has been moved on to the next generation.
I think so, yeah, just pass on that knowledge. I think there's a famous mathematician, Galois, Évariste Galois.
Okay.
He was a young genius and he had solved a number of problems in his mind and kind of realised that people had been working on for centuries.
Yes.
He got into a duel. He was against one of the top duelists in France. He knew he was going to be killed the next day, and he spent the night writing up his notes. And in the margins of his notes, they found solutions to problems that were hundreds of years old. He was like 21, 22 years old when he died. And there is an example of where he felt a moral imperative to pass that on, that perspective on. And we may have been another few hundred years before we solved them if he hadn't.
Interesting. That I hadn't heard of him before. And then the final question here, and we've got into it a little bit, but do you believe that laws, either here in the United States or you said you're from the UK?
UK, yeah.
Or just anywhere in general, modern laws, do they establish morality that we have, or does morality establish the laws?
I think the latter. Morality establishes the laws.
And why is that?
Well, I think that certain laws could be from some perspective could be seen as immoral occasionally, but I think that most laws have been developed, from a moral perspective. That the law is trying to make the situation better for a society as wide as possible, but also protecting individuals within that. So I think that it's morality. I think of some examples. I'm not really a lawyer, but my perspective is that it's morality that drives the creation of laws, usually.
I think the main counterexample here is that most usually an atheistic believers would say that the only reason that I don't kill you or you don't kill me right now is because a law would put you in jail for that.
Yeah, I disagree with that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that. I know. I know. I mean, there are situations where something is legal, and yet people do not do it because they feel that there's a higher moral imperative to either do or not do something, aside from just the law.
Okay.
So, I think if it wasn't a law, something like that, people would very quickly make it one.
Right.
But that's driven by morality, I believe.
Now, do you have any questions for me? I know sometimes the interviewer may like to ask a couple questions, but if you don't, it's fine.
I don't. No.
All right.
Thanks.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks for letting me have an
awesome.
advice as well on those questions. It helped to prepare.
All right. Well, this is Project Morality, and that's interview 5.